They're coming on as we go.
Okay, as we go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to, while we're still waiting for this to come on, I'm going to start this one a little different. And most of you have had the exercise where I have you feel the energy in your hands and your fingertips. And I'd like for everyone, if you have enough room, to spread your hands out like so. And see if you can feel vibration in your hands or your fingertips. And anyone not feeling it, just announce it and I'll bump you up. Okay. So from that, I'm taking it that everyone's feeling some tingling, something going on in the hands. Okay. Okay. Anyone in your group, Neo Shamanic, that's having trouble feeling that?
I have one in the restroom. Other than that, everyone else is feeling it.
Okay. We'll wait till the person in the restroom, because I'd like everyone to be involved. So we'll just wait till that person rejoins.
Okay.
All right. They're getting a nice spark, though.
Is there anyone you want me to muscle test that needs to be bumped up?
Okay, I'm going to have Ms. A tune in and pat anyone who needs a bump up. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We've got to, yeah, all right. Find out where that one is. Containing ring. All right, yeah.
Okay, everyone's back.
Okay, terrific. Let me get rid of this. Somebody's got something on that's new stuff. That's okay. Yeah. I want to know this group. Okay. Yeah, someone has something on them that wants to be a bit of a butt, but that's okay. Containing. Okay, we're resuming the exercise again.
Okay.
On the opposite side. And from what I understand, everyone, the only person who, because there was someone missing, so whoever was missing, Nelly, if you can see if they can feel it.
Can you feel it? Everyone can over here, Chief.
Okay, so what we're doing, we're going to bring it. That's very good. We're getting some strong reaction here. That's good. Going to bring our hands closer together as such, like this. You should start to feel that energy vibrating a bit more, pushing more out into the audience. Okay, if you feel that intensity, that's good. Then we're going to use this energy to contain this forum, contain everyone that's in the forum. We need everyone's energy to do this. And I'm bumping it up for you, all right? So you see this energy as the containment. That's the Pac-Man, those who are familiar with that. Above yourselves, above your space, in your room. Come to seeing your tech, phones, computers, whatever you're using. Okay, then I'm going to start the containment. Starting now. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's definitely some resistance. It's okay. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Excuse me. Yeah, we got some. Okay. Jay, are you stuck with me? We can find out a little later who's got this attachment on you. Okay. All right. Welcome to the 8th Ask the Chief Forum. This is the West Coast edition. Excuse me. And everyone knows that this is basically question and answer. So anyone having questions having to do with the work, just even philosophy, everything that involves Neo Shamanism, even things that have that you may feel is sort of like a mystical questions and so on, it doesn't necessarily have to do with what I've been teaching, but anything that has to do with methods that you might have used in the past or try to use in the past to enlighten yourself or to evolve. So we're going to start out with just anyone having a question off the bat that's on their mind that they'd like to share.
I have one question.
Okay, Eric.
Hey, hello. I just had a question about NPCs. I think you spoke about non-playable characters before, or NPCs. I think that's the term.
Oh, right, NPCs, yes.
Yeah, and I just had a question on how you can tell the authentic consciousness from the NPCs.
Oh, very good question. Generally, now having to do with people that you're around on the regular. If you find individuals who only have just a set amount of information, set amount of what you say, knowledge, what's considered knowledge, or just a set interest. So people who are stuck in a certain type of head. I'll use an example for guys who they eat, sleep, talk, sports.
Right.
Because that's about as far as their interest in their expression goes. So even with that, or someone who's basically just obsessed with sex, that's an NPC also.
Right.
Something that has to do with a fixed obsession or just a fixed, just limited expanse of information. There are a lot of parents that that are like that. They have just a certain interest in things, or they have a certain just a fixed idea about things. Very seldom will you find a creative, anything creative coming out of their minds. So those are examples of as to the individuals who are NPCs.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a perfect explanation. I understand that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, that's one that goes with parents. Just say brought up some other examples of some clients that we've had in the past that I've had who, if I would say something like, using your imagination, and they have a hard time using their imagination. I actually, I had a client a couple years ago who didn't even know what imagination was, which is odd to think, but when I tried to get that person to use her imagination, she didn't know what I was talking about. I said, can you picture something in your head? And, gotta know. So individuals who are, in other words, who have that limitation, also what Ms. A was talking about, one person, I said, think of grapes. The word grapes would show up.
In your head.
In their head, and they couldn't see actual grapes. They just saw the word for everything that I said. Imagine this, they saw the word and not the actual image. So talking about, and again, NPCs, it has to do with a whole lot of individuals who are locked down into this realm in that way. And energy is kind of doing some really interesting things. I'm going to try to override it. But anyway, we can move on to, well, you're talking about the grandma with 5 stories, as well. That you go to your grandma and she just keeps repeating, or the grandpa, because a lot of the old guys will do the same thing, just keep repeating the same story. Every time you come over, it's the same series, like set of stories that
Did
this
I
person
tell
has.
you when I was in high school?
Yeah,
Like,
like
yes, grandma.
the highlights of their lives, basically. But again, finishing that up and moving on to the next thing. Okay, I'm getting this things going to be starting to balance out right now. Okay, good. Does anyone have anything to add to that, or any of their own questions that they'd like to ask? All right, so with that, I usually wait a couple of seconds just to read the silence. And with that, then we're going to go through questions that have been submitted over, I guess, the last several months or so. And there's, we have quite a few of them, so you don't get through them all in the same, in one session or one forum. So what do we have on the top?
Okay, on the top you have, what are your thoughts on social media and containment?
Okay, thoughts on social media and containment. Some of you might have touched on that during your session, but this is for those who have not. And usually when I start to talk about things, there's either something added or I approach it from various directions, different directions. So you're getting similar information, but you're not getting the exact same information I gave you last time. So as far as like social media, the internet, having to do with certain information that came in not that long ago, there are those who consider the internet as enslaved energy, which means that it's under the control of something that, or very much influenced and put together by something that's very, very dense. But because how density likes to shoot itself in the foot, no two people use it exactly the same way. So when it comes to social media, you have, it's literally like, almost like a mirror. When you start to look at, at your cell phone, you look at your computer or whatever, it's literally like a mirror to all these other individuals who are also on the web. So there are certain individuals who definitely delve in dense magic, some call black magic or whatever, witchcraft and so on, who actually try to hook people through whatever it is they're putting on the internet. There are individuals who will watch your feed or look at whatever images that you put of yourself on the internet, and there are individuals who will focus on your image, try to tap into your consciousness through that image. So I remember years ago, as a kid, I think when I read this, had to do with nations people, and those individuals who call, Native Americans or whatever, but I like the term nations people. And there was one group who did not like to have their photos taken, and I believe didn't even allow it to happen, because they felt that that person with that box was trapping a piece of their soul. So someone said, well, that isn't that kind of superstitious or ignorant, but in reality, it was true. It has to do with what someone who was a shaman at that time, there were still maybe a few authentic shamans around, can see the energy and see the intent of what these individuals were up to taking photos. Now, the photographer may not have known exactly what his deal was, but he had this drive to, to do photography and to take pictures of these people and so on and so forth. So the same thing goes, I should say, applies to going online, doing social media. You always have to contain yourself before you go online. And it doesn't mean, again, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, whatever. You practice it enough, then it's kind of like, I contain, like that. Because it's primarily your intent, but when I do this, this is your exercise. This is to help your focus. So before you go on to anything having to do with the internet, I would, strongly advise also containing the object, the item, the tech that you're using. Contain yourself first, contain that object, contain that tech, contain that phone. Then when you go into certain sites, just for safety, you're going to just contain every damn thing, literally. So you get, each site containing that site, because whoever put that site together has their intent, all wrapped up in there. And the eyes take in energy. It takes in the intent. So what I call corkscrewing, that goes on full time in this realm. And generally dense corkscrewing, which means someone's going to corkscrew you into either purchasing something or being interested in someone. I think I've used an example before, but I'm going to repeat it anyway, of a client who got obsessed with a young woman on YouTube who was doing, I guess, so-called spiritual things and talking spiritual, whatever, very new age type of stuff. And he got obsessed with her to the point where, he's imagining that, this is the kind of woman that I like, and I should get in touch with her. And I said, well, why don't you look and see how many views she has? And they were like, I figured out how some insane number of views, maybe over 100,000 views. And I said, well, I'm quite sure that majority of those views are men who are being also corkscrewed and influenced by this particular person who are having very similar thoughts to you. So it's like this unrequited, desire to be with this person to the point where, they can actually, and, both men and women have this, where they can start to dream about someone that they've met. Now, there are times that you can get fixated on somebody and maybe something positive. There's times that fixation is not a good thing. I should say someone coming up in your thoughts or in your dreams in a certain way. Now, you have to be very careful because there's a lot of individuals who work through that, through the dream realm, and their intent is to pull you into something where they feed on your energy or utilize you for some other weird, nefarious thing that inevitably will cause you to pump out a certain type of essence, and then they'll feed on that energy. So with that said, I literally had to tell the person that this individual who put this video had her intent in it, and she would be considered someone like a siren. If you've heard those, those old myths or whatever of, I guess, I'm trying to remember what the actual culture where they were sailing and they would see these, the mermaids in this certain area, and they've done movies of it. I'm quite sure anyone who's watched enough movies have seen some of this stuff. And these were sirens. They just pull you in, and then when they pull the guy in, then the sailors in, then they just kill him and eat him or whatever they do with him. This is not so extreme as the movies, but it does have to do with consuming a person's energy, and consuming their essence. So, again, corkscrewing, we talk about there's all kinds of institutions that have to do with focusing on a certain key point or a key person as a means to also feed on that energy that you have. Okay. So any questions about what I just talked about? Okay, good. Yeah, no, I've gotten used to this. And I realize a lot of things are just kind of way off script for most people as far as like what been exposed to throughout your life as to what's spiritual and what's mystical and what's this, that, and so on and so forth. So what I do, I'm pushing down and knocking down these walls. It's not like I'm knocking down walls and then you're standing out in the world and just wondering where to go. I knock them down and say, this is the direction. Okay.
Okay, so I think we'll go on to the next question that has to do with this. But what's the difference between density using a mirror and density using a photo, like on the internet or social media?
Okay. That's another interesting one that covers a lot of areas as far as like imagery that actually have attachments. And what Ms. A's question had to do with something I learned some time ago having to do with photos, or if someone has pictures on the wall in their house. 9 times out of 10, if there's pictures that have a person's face on them, there's an attachment. There's an attachment connected to that image. But also you can find attachments connected to landscapes, some abstract art, and so on and so forth. But there's certain consciousness that likes something that seems familiar, which would be like the face of a person. And I've had experiences in the past. So first trip to Egypt, wow, maybe 30 years ago, something now. We stayed at a place that a friend had supplied for us, and there were these photos of whoever owned that particular flat on the wall. And at a certain time of the day, well, not even a certain time of the day, at a certain time of the evening, as it got dark, this was a 2-story flat, you would start to see shadows move up the stairs. But we're talking about photos. They had like family photos. And at the time, my sister was on the trip with me. And she talked about walking into this one particular area and noticing on peripherals that the photos were, whoever was in that photo was actually following her with their eyes. And I know that, there's those banners that they make, those cutouts for the mall, where it looks like the person's watching you as you walk by, but it's not the same thing. This is like, someone actually looking, and also a slight change in the expression on in the image. So, she told me about it, then I started to pay attention to it and noticed the same thing. That means that sometimes there are individuals who have a certain ability to actually observe a scene through an image. They put something there, not unlike someone who uses concept of the crystal ball, where they have an image of themselves or someone else, and they're observing it. It's almost like one of those goofy horror movies or something, or maybe even like what was that Harry Potter movie or something, where the images, in the along the hallway, are looking and they're changing position and all of that. Nothing quite as extreme as that, but you can tell that there's something following you and watching you. And it wasn't just that one image; it was several different images, and also at times they would interact with one another. So if you're tuned up in a certain way energetically, you'll start to hear some murmuring or whatever. Or even now, if you're hearing murmuring in your mind, or it feels like it's in your mind, that means that you're empathing, you're picking up information or someone on the other side. Sometimes that information or someone's trying to talk into your head to try to get you to do something that you're not really interested in doing, or try to accept someone in that you're not interested in accepting in. So again, coming right back to the initial question, photos are like, well, no, I can remember. Photos at this time, actually, they can house an attachment or a consciousness. Artwork, if you go to any, we're in Thailand, and I've been through a lot of the temples here for various reasons, not to go and worship and so on and so forth. Go because I was called to come in and visit these places for a certain reason. But I would walk into some of these places, they have these statues of old monks who probably passed on, and inevitably, I would say not 100% of them, but a good 90% of them, I could feel whatever was inside of that statue. So that goes along with artwork and imagery. That would be considered man-made and imagery, whatever, that things actually will basically attach themselves to. Now with mirrors, things come in and out of mirrors. Mirrors are like a porthole. That's why I teach everyone about containing your mirrors. Because mirrors are not like a domain, like a photo or something like that. The consciousness or attachment consider a photo or an imagery or a piece of sculpture as its domain, almost like as its property. Mirrors are like a doorway. So anything can come through mirrors. Even if you got a little pocket mirror or something like that, not to make anyone paranoid, but you just have to have this become second nature. Look at something, contain. Mirror contained, whatever. If you're at someone else's home, it depends on whether you want to, help them out a bit or whatever, and contain the mirrors, or you can just watch. If you're tuned in, like a number of my clients have gotten to a point where they're empathing really well, and they're actually seeing the other realms a bit more. You can actually sit there and watch the activity going on in someone else's place. Now, it's up to you whether you want to get involved with it or not. 9 times out of 10, I don't, unless that person is having an issue where they were requesting that I help them with the situation. Or they have a situation that is being influenced by the things that are coming through the mirror. And I have had clients who have specifically had issues that way and asked me to solve those issues. Excuse me. Mhm. Well, if you want to go ahead and share that, that would be.
Whenever I lived in Texas, there was this mirror that was from the floor to the ceiling. And if you walk down the hallway, it was the entire size of the hallway. Whenever my family first moved into that house, my little sister, she immediately sprinted at this mirror and slapped into it. I was just walking towards it, and then I heard a really loud thud, and I was like, "What's wrong with you? Why did you do that?" But that mirror was very haunted, and I thought that, I just thought it was a mirror. I didn't know much about it, except that the house was always creepy. But later on, whenever I met Chief and his daughter, Chief said that mirror was still in my energy, where density was using it to come through, because it was in my memories.
Yeah, there's times, which goes into another subject having to do with memories and learning how to shut out certain memories, or just neutralize them, really is what it is. Memories work as far as like, most people have this, the top 10 most embarrassing moments that would just, like on a loop, would just run through your head. And there's times, it's fine, you don't hear it, and usually if you're preoccupied in some level 1 activities that density has no issues with. But when you start to sit and trying to ponder or think, or even that's one of the things when I talk about meditation, it's really dicey doing meditation, because most people are told to just open themselves up, and seek the answer from who. So with my experience, I guarantee you, that other realm shot the block full of assholes who will come in and give you some bogus ass information. I've had people who have literally had to warn them about ending up in the psych ward because they started believing a lot of this garbage that the density was throwing at them. And that had to do with ego also. They wanted to be special, and so if anything else comes in on the other side, and says, you're the most special, or what is that, like one of those movies, No, the one with the woman and there's a couple of them. One has with the Captain Marvel was one, but there was another one.
The Dark Phoenix.
The Dark Phoenix, where there's this one character, this woman, she's telling this crazy ass woman who supposedly has all this juice, which is really a misnomer. Why would any consciousness who's supposedly overall things give that much juice to somebody who's insane? But this person played the role as what I call a pigeon, who starts to just talk and talk. And say, well, I like the fact that you're telling me that I am the most powerful thing, around, with no proof, But this thing keep talking, and it's, you give it a little something, you give it this your approval, so you're feeding it a little bit. It's like feeding pigeons. You give them some breadcrumbs, they come back the next time for more breadcrumbs. And as long as they can get something from you, they'll keep driving you insane. And inevitably, there have been situations where individuals end up in the psych ward because they're listening to the wrong things. You can save Gaia. You're going to save her single-handedly, and all this really illogical stuff. And then they end up in my table, and then start talking. Eyes get all glassy and so on, and then they start just like running this rhetoric. And because of my experience, I said, this is some really dense-ass rhetoric, and I can see you in there talking. But again, I think we were still talking about the difference between the mirrors. I think I covered it for the most part, but again, mirrors are passageways. So it's a passageway to the other side, other dimensions. So anything, again, photos, art, things like that, are domains for density, a lot of density, domains for attachments. Mirrors are just basically a portal. So any passing consciousness, if they want to get into your place, they can get in just walking through the mirror. And a lot of you of a certain generation, of a younger generation, may not remember a generation or two ago, my grandmother, mirrors in her place, always covered until she needed to use them. Excuse me. So that was something that was common. Common knowledge with a certain generation of people, and it seemed to span various areas of the planet. So I've seen it in Black America. I've seen images like in Israel, some imagery like in the Middle East, and so on, where there's this concern about mirrors. Okay, so I think that I might have gotten as far as I can go with that one. Yeah, any questions? Again, anyone has any questions at all, feel free to just, if it's a thought in your mind, just, make a noise, because of the situation with Skype goofing around with our tech, we can't really see who's on the screen because the screen is facing away from us. So you'll have to, make a noise or just say, excuse me or something like that, and I'll stop. And I guarantee you, if I lose my place, Ms. A will find it for me. So.
That's right.
Okay.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering too, how do you sometimes decipher if it's something that is on you, like your MC or the MC on you, or if it's something else, like an item or someone else's attachments? How do you start to decipher?
Okay. Well, one, if it's something has to do with yourself, you're going to contain yourself. If you're suspicious of something affecting you, you do a containment. And I think there are certain ones that I have advanced containment, and only share that when people get to a certain point where they're really good at doing their beginner's containment. Mm-hmm. And I believe that you were in advance, right, with containment?
I think so.
Okay. Well, actually, so that particular type of containment, if you're concerned, you contain yourself.
Uh-huh.
And with the quilt and so on, you contain yourself, and then see what you feel. Now, if you're containing and you're starting to feel some, which again, because you're empathing, and yeah, you're an empath. So when you're containing and you feel, oh, you can feel the emotions. Ms. A, is there something that you can actually explain? Because Ms. A does this.
Sure, yes.
Okay.
So one of the most difficult things about empathing, besides just feeling what other people are feeling in all different types of parts of their expression, part of that empathing that's very difficult is to understand what is myself and what is the client. So sometimes if I'm empathing someone's final moments during a very traumatic expression, I have to make sure that I don't get caught up in their agony and feel like it's my own. So the more that you contain yourself and contain your thoughts. So whenever you have a thought and you think about, okay, is this thought density inspired, or is this thought more like Neo Shamanism, or more like what Chief teaches about? Does this thought make my energy go up or go down? So if it's going down, or it makes you feel confused or uncomfortable, that discomfort, especially if you're doing containment on that thought, that's the density.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're doing containment, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable unless you fused with that dense thought or that dense energy.
Yeah, because you're empathing the person. In other words, you're working on someone, you're empathing whatever's on them. Or, and whatever's on them is causing them to feel a certain way, feel a certain amount of stress. And in that only you're empathing that person, you're empathing, you can end up empathing everything that's connected to that person.
Yeah.
So, so you're going to, that's where, again, as those who aficionados of containment know how well it works, and this is some serious stuff.
Yeah.
So you will literally, when you start to send something, containing yourself, and then seeing if you're empathing. You're empathing someone else's energy, empathing, whatever's in the environment. There are times when individuals will, most of the time there's a different type of feeling when you're empathing something that's connected or an attachment on other individuals, opposed to if you're feeling and empathing something that is like separate from them. Well, you would say that, right?
Yes, it definitely you have to, it's best to when you have a feeling that's uncomfortable, write it down. That way you can come back to that spot during a session and ask Chief which one it is, and then remember how it felt when you had that thought. And then whenever Chief tells you what it is, then remember that feeling. And then you can use that as a reference. But remember that nothing is set in stone. So there may be nuances that you need to shift and be flexible, like Chief talks about being flexible is about part of Supreme Consciousness.
Yeah, because there's no one size fits all with this. And there never was a one size fits all, period, as far as existence is concerned. It's only realms like this where they want everyone to, lock into a box. Or, if you saw old movies of the military marching like little robots or whatever, it's extremely unnatural, just totally unnatural thing. Just like the whole concept of war and all that business. It's all, it's all unnecessary, it's all unnatural. So again, with your energy, it has to do, again, like Ms. A, said, there's no one size fits all. There's always variations having to do with people and their sessions. And one of the reasons I like the forum, and I get it when a lot of times there's a lot of silence, so we just go through information, answers, questions and answers. But I also feel that it is good for other participants to hear what other participants have to say about their experiences. Or just as, you introduced a question, Eric introduced a question, having to do with, what he's feeling and what he wants to understand. And a lot of times you may be asking a question that someone else may not feel comfortable asking. So that's why it's good, I I like it when there's interaction that way. But also I understand that there's a lot of information that I have, that I give, that causes, one to just want to think about it, or just basically, I guess, download it in their mind. And then probably after, the session or whatever, You may have questions, but again, with these things, you can watch, these are video so that you can watch and rewatch it. If there's information or something that you didn't quite hear, you can just download the video, or you can just watch it on Skype, I believe, also. But I think it's better just anything that has something of interest of the forum is good to download it.
And it's also those who rewatch it, they get a boost from the energy that happened during that forum. The information is energy.
Yeah, and so that's why it's good to have the live, because when I start pushing energy out, I'm pushing energy out to those who are present now. If someone's watching it later, they're not going to get that same, they're not going to get that, because my intent is to give it to those who are on screen right now, who are observing.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely, it would only be the secondary class.
Well, it's kind of like a secondary blast. You're going to get some enlightenment. You're going to get some information. The thing about consciousness is that we're all energetic. Even if you're looking at yourself as a physical vehicle, it is literally something akin to a holograph or an illusion. And if you really want to go deep into how the mind affects the physical body, you may think in terms of when you may have been depressed and how it was reflected on how you looked. Or when you're feeling really, really healthy and energetic, how it affects how you look. Or when you're thinking more up, it affects how you look. And it's not just, oh, my face has a smile on it or a sad. I'm talking about your whole energy, your whole posture, everything. Even what you're pumping off vibrationally changes depending on what you're thinking.
Can I share something that helped me with my growth by watching?
Sure.
So whenever I would watch, like when I would listen to, whenever I had sessions with Chief, I always recorded them. And then if there were parts of the session or, for example, Ask the Chief that made me feel uncomfortable, I would re-listen to it over and over again and contain as I was doing it so that the discomfort would go away, because I knew what Chief was teaching me was a higher vibration than my own. And that's why there was a discomfort. So if I contain the density that wants to resist what Chief is saying, that's why I kept listening to it over and over until it stopped the discomfort. And it really helped me to push through some walls. That's why when you feel discomfort, sometimes because there's a wall in your energy resisting the higher vibrational words that Chief is saying.
Well, with that, someone said, well, she's listening to it over and over again. Is that obsessive? No, that's not obsessive. If you're learning a new language, what do you have to do? You have to listen to it over and over again. I'm delving into learning a bit of Japanese. So because the pronunciations are so different from the West, I have to listen to it over and over and over again and repeat the enunciation of the words over and over and over again till it's instilled in my mind, and that it becomes second nature. So what we're talking about is a new language also. Mm. What Neo Shamanism is a new language. It's a really old language, but new to those who are here. So if you have to repeat something over again, especially if it's something you're feeling some real positive effects from. Is there something that? We're okay? Okay, yeah, so if it's definitely something that you're feeling a positive effect from, you're going to want to immerse yourself until you feel that you have it. And part of what the forums are, as well as the sessions, are when you get to that point, because inevitably with what I'm doing, you're going to get to a point you're going to wonder which way to go, this way or that way. And that's when you have sessions, that's when you come onto the forum and you actually share your concerns or your question as far as like your direction and what you need to do. Again, I do, probably the last time, a lot of the questions, if you want your question to be anonymous, just say anonymous. And that way, if you want to, if it's something that's personal and you feel no one out there knows what's going on in your life who's on the forum, then, you just ask those questions as an anonymous, and I'll answer them. And, and even if I know what it is, I'm not going to out you, But, again, that's part of what the forum is about also. So, anyway,
Would you like to go on to the next question?
yeah, we can go on to the next question unless someone wants some clarification or you have a question that's come up. And again, don't feel shy about just like saying, I got a question. Okay?
Okay.
All right, we're going to move.
So, next question.
Oh, I heard some
Oh yeah, that was me moving around. I was like, I didn't think you heard. But it's good. It's perfect.
That's okay.
This is probably a reiteration, I'm sure. I just had a question about just the higher self, the term higher self, and just the concept of it. I just wanted to know, just in your own words, what is the higher self, and what does that look like to embody that?
Okay. Well, as far as like the higher self, for you to actually really understand it, you have to be able to erase the concept of having a human body. So you can think, there are some actual good examples that do exist on this planet. There are people who see orbs. It's like a ball of light. And your consciousness, your higher consciousness, is like a ball of light. So, in other words, every function that you need as far as like thinking is within that in your energetic consciousness. You don't need to think through a mechanical brain, which is what we have, which is a filtering system in this world. So some will see themselves as light. There are individuals who've had out-of-body experiences, and they'll see a consciousness approach them, but it's in the form of light, or just a shape. Sometimes there are individuals who move through, and their shape, and their color is black, and they're moving through. So don't go by the color of whatever you see. If you're experiencing something like that, even if you wake up in the middle of the night and you see something like, glowy, moving, that is a consciousness. What you're going to do, you're going to contain just to make sure that that consciousness is benign for someone who's there, who's got something helpful for you. If you contain them and you see them shoot out of there, that's something that was coming in to try to feed off of your energy or try to get you into a state of fear or something to keep you from moving forward with your journey, with your ideas. So everything is energetic. So how, that's literally what your consciousness is. It's energy, conscious energy. You can move this way, that way, and it's almost limitless as to what you can do as a whole consciousness, what you can experience as a whole consciousness. So that's premature because right now, not many people, I should say, have that ability at this point. But when you start to empath and you start to pay attention to sensing things when you move into a space or you walk into a space, instead of just, okay, it feels weird, I'm going to walk on, you pay attention to that feeling. That helps you get more in touch with your higher consciousness, because that's the part that density has a hard time. It's really shutting down as much as they like to. That's what all the brainwash stuff is about. It's trying to shut you down as much as possible so you can just good little food, no thoughts, no desire to get out of the chicken food. So when you're having thoughts like that, that's your higher consciousness that's saying there's more out there. So when you feel that, you're actually tapping into your higher consciousness. When you feel like something saying, there's more out there, there's more out there, there's more than this, there's got to be more than this.
This is what you want to explain.
Oh, okay. So how we end up, the avatars end up in this realm. That's what the symbol is. It has to do with the 3 different, I should say, splits of consciousness. One is, interchangeable. One is your higher consciousness. And your higher consciousness is usually in a dormant mode in this realm. Yeah. In other words, in the other realm, you're just total, whole. Now, the body consciousness is a really curious one because everything comes from supreme consciousness, and then they go through whatever processes, and everyone who's just really awful in this realm, they went through. It's like a bad detour, but it's more like a hijacking. A lot of different ways that individuals end up in this realm. Everyone here has damage. So One is has to do with, in other words, your higher consciousness connects you to the broader universe the way that it really is, and it has memories, especially depending on how old the consciousness you are. There will be these memories of freedom, knowing what real freedom feels like, but knowing this isn't it. When you're young consciousness, it's like being stolen from a hospital nursery ward, and you don't, and anybody can grab you and say, I'm your parent, and you wouldn't know the difference because you were an infant at the time. So there's a lot of infantile consciousness here who haven't even got a clue what real freedom feels like. Usually individuals who have some experiences beyond this with their higher consciousness will tend to seek more answers and seek what they feel could free them. Okay, so, well, did I go around the bend here with that?
No, you were talking, you covered it, Chief.
Yeah, I feel like I covered it, but it seemed like, yeah, there was a couple avenues that could have gone down with it. But where it is right now, again, this is your core. Your higher consciousness is your core consciousness. So, right, I didn't finish with the second, swirl represents where your higher consciousness has been split to a certain degree, and it's literally sharing a space with the program of this realm. So that's what they're teaching this to this one aspect, this one part of your higher consciousness, because they can't get you to move unless you have that higher consciousness, which is basically a battery to them. Very similar to that, to the Matrix, where they use your energy as food, as other ways of motivating, making things work, and so on and so forth in this realm. They can't do it without your higher consciousness. They can't do it without your energy. And that's the big misnomer here. They have you thinking that you're weak, but in reality, you power with others. You power this reality, this illusion. You support all this negativity because you have no awareness that you are supporting it, because institutions will tell you, oh, you don't, there's no way you can figure anything out. You're nothing. You're little. You are little. Density is the shit. You're small. Density is,
And they give many names to density, like government is is above you.
yeah,
The man is above you. Business is above you.
yeah. This CEO is above you. This guy, man, he's got a shitload of money. He's above you. So they give you all these really false. It's almost like that religious false idols. So, so you give you all these little false idols. I mean, even to the point where an individual will look up to entertainer, someone who's popular, who's doing a really good job at this, distracting people from what's really going on. And individuals will make altars to other people who are just basically consciousness themselves, who are in their purest form are no better than yourself. So, I mean, is that good enough, Eric? Did you get enough information out of that?
Oh no, that was perfect. That was great. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you for the question again. Okay, terrific.
Okay.
We're gonna move.
Keisha has a question, Chief.
Sure.
I don't know if this has already been asked, but in pictures, I've seen those white orbs that you're talking about, like floating by. What is that? Is that a
Well, if you're
spirit?
talking about a black orb, what I'm getting is
She said it's a white orb.
a white orb. Oh, I think the black orb. Okay, so we said black orbs.
Maybe
That has
curled
to do
up
with the
in line.
consciousness.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a white orb, that has to do with the consciousness. Generally, someone who's I would say pretty benign, not a harmful individual. Sometimes
Muscle test, but
we can just go ahead and muscle test just
first
for
it's a
certain.
specific
Yeah.
situation.
So we can move it out of the general into your specific situation. There's something that doesn't like what we're getting ready to do.
They like, I have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been doing their maniacal laugh lately. So I just think that they're just crazy. So. Screening again. So Ms. A is going to tap into you just to get that information. And you've got a lot of out of the way.
It's just shaking up because we created her recently. I didn't mean to tap in. It's just happening.
No, that's okay. Okay. All right.
So we're seeing what.
Seeing white orb.
Lens or what?
Well, I sense that they were light anyway, not tapping in. So we got, that's light. Is this something that you have seen recently, or is this something that you've seen off and on for a while?
Off and on for a while.
Speak up.
Off and on for a while.
Okay. Off and on for a while, meaning over a number of years?
Yeah, like I see them, yeah.
Okay. Someone who considers themselves family, primarily kind of like observing and watching. And when they watch, it's not, like the creepy, just going to stand there and stare at you. It has to do with whatever they could possibly do to help you move in, one direction over another direction. So in that form, they literally, which is really the real realm, when you see, orbs or something, that is the real world. Okay. And when certain individuals, I've had some recent individuals who passed, and we talked to them to see if they were interested in coming back. Once they see the other side, to see that there's a lot of things that have been shifted, having to do with light beings on the other side. They decide that they want to stay on that other side. Okay, so you have, I'm seeing a number of 2 to 3. How many do you normally see?
Yeah, at least 2
2
to
3 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to figure out who's having such a connection here about this.
It's a kind of a mix-up thing. These.
It's a lot of chaos.
Yes.
Okay.
These ones that want to help Keisha, they stay at the edges because they don't want to get too close.
Well, because they don't have that kind of juice.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with, orbs, which are individuals, sometimes it has to do with individuals that are part of your genetic family in this particular expression. And there are times that there are consciousness who follow you from one expression to the next.
Okay.
And they're literally trying to, because they believe in the tenets of supreme consciousness and so on, that all consciousness should be free. So they're doing whatever they can, but they know that they don't have the kind of juice that the density has had on the other side. So they do stay on the periphery, and that's why sometimes someone will hear a voice tell them, don't go down that street, go down the next street. Don't get on that bus, wait for the next bus. Or don't take this, don't take this plane, take the next plane. Sometimes odd things like, you figure you have everything set up for a trip, and then you check, and all of a sudden there's no record of it. And that's usually how these types of beings will work. They try to keep you out of harm's way. But again, they're, I can acknowledge them in a sense. Okay, so I would just acknowledge, there was something talking about welcoming, but I'm not really doing that. You're going to acknowledge that these individuals are consciousness. Okay, so what consciousness can do on that other realm also, they can morph into looking like an actual person.
Mm. Wow.
So that's one of the things about being a consciousness and what's called your higher consciousness. There's a lot more things that you can do. But these guys, yeah, they felt trapped too in this realm because there was a serious lockdown that was going on in this realm for thousands of years. So we have run into consciousness who I will coin as runners, who once they got transitioned out of a certain expression, they see these guys coming to segue them into another crappy expression, and they take off and they go running. And we had some that said, well, how the heck did you last this long, for thousands of years, around a certain person? And he said, I run really fast.
They'll never catch
Yeah, he said, I run really fast. And literally, I guess he did because he was still here trying to help this person who was getting increasingly more damaged with each expression that she went through.
Wow.
All right. So again, this is the answer to your question. Is I'm seeing that they are consciousness who would like to benefit, but they don't have enough strength. But sometimes you never know. How do you end up meeting certain individuals? How do you end up talking to certain individuals? How do you end up here talking to me, having a session with me?
Right.
Okay. So they're part of that as well. So they can't, you won't find them coming out with a club or a sword, fighting with density because they know they don't have that kind of juice. But they can attempt to influence your consciousness and push you in a direction that they feel is more beneficial for you. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of clients who've been sent this way. Just individuals who said they don't even know why they even came to Thailand.
And whenever we talk to these people who stick around other consciousness to try to help them, whenever they send them to Chief, it's because they know that Chief is an aficionado of the other side, and he knows how to take down the density, which they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, because again, when you come into this realm, there's a lot of things that happen vibrationally to you as a consciousness. And one is to, as much as they can, to forget where you really originated from, especially when you're an older consciousness. And that's one of the reasons that there are certain people that you'll find who see this like, this just get dumped on constantly. Or some would consider it, did we have that question about bad luck or whatever? Near or?
It's coming.
Okay. But misfortunes or people treating them badly. And, and it's not like you're someone who's out there looking for trouble or looking for a fight. It just seems that, I seem to be attracting these things, when in reality it's not you. It's something on the other side that is basically directing things in your direction. And it reminds me a bit of, we covered Ready Player One, I think it was the women's forum, last women's forum, and there's a scene where this guy figures out how to win this race by going backwards. And when he goes backwards, he ends up in the other dimension in that game, which symbolizes, for me, this dimension and the next over. So as he's driving through, really fast backwards, he sees the things on the other side preparing to literally knock these other cars off the track and do all these things to keep these people from winning the race. This is how that realm works. Literally, density sees you. They are literally cowards. They will not, and the only time they will show themselves is if they tune you up, some horror movies or something like that, or some mad scriptures or something or whatever. And then they'll show up while you're alone in the middle of the night, the witching hour and all that business. And I had plenty of that garbage, happen to me from the time I was a kid, to the point where I know what they are. They don't come around anymore because they're afraid to. So when you get to the point where you understand that these things are literally cowards hiding in the darkness, and you use your containment, because if you don't have a tool, a weapon, something to use against them, which is, the containment is targeting your intent. I give you the juice for it. I give you the energy for it. And then you use your intent to target whatever it is that is bothering you, or these things where there are clients who are on who've had spirits walk in and try to do the spirit thing and look creepy and so on and so forth, and they go contain, boom, and that thing will run off. Or sometimes those who just feel like very comfortable, when I was a kid, just come comfortable, just like plop right on my bed in the middle of the night, and wake up and there's something sitting there that shouldn't be there. But once you start to use your containment, to hit them with your containment, put them in that containment ball, they don't come that close anymore. Some may get confused. So we've had some who had these entities stand in the corner looking at them from a corner, because they're not sure exactly how to get past your defenses if you're doing your containment correctly. So even with them noticing this person in the corner, they're like, get the hell out of me. Contain, they're gone. And I think I might have shifted gears and went on to, branched off into something else. Can you bring me back to where we were?
We're talking about people who have these consciousness that stick around them, sending them to you. That's how it.
Oh, right, that's where you go. Yeah, again, it's a really complex realm that's outside of this realm. And not to be daunting, because in your higher consciousness mode, when you connect more to your higher consciousness and get rid of the fear, you'll find that it's a little easier for you to just start to decipher what's happening around you, or to decipher when you feel a certain type of emotion or expression, that it is not you necessarily most of the time. It is something that you're empathing. So walking into, let's say, an empty building, no one's been in for a while, you step in there and you immediately start to feel the nervousness. Sometimes it's yourself having to do with your fear, but if you're pushing through that fear stuff, you walk in there, you're starting to feel the density that may be in there because your energy is a little too strong for them. So that will also help happen the more you do your exercises, the more you focus. There are other exercises that I give clients who are more advanced that helps them even more with that, and even more having to do with controlling your environment. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. That. Yeah, you can actually. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question that has to do with containment in general is what do people do to weaken their containment?
Mm-hmm.
And I can give ideas.
Well, one, the things that weaken containment has to do with the programming. So if you're still buying into certain aspects of the program, it's going to weaken your containment. As far as like, the fear program, for most, had to do with what I had to do a long time ago, actually. I began to push through the fear. So if I had to go into a really dark basement to take care of some business or whatever, and I said, oh man, I know those things are down there. This is like years and years ago before I evolved my techniques and how to basically get rid of these things. But I literally worked through, in order for me to get there, I had to work through my fear, actually. So I would literally go into these spaces, even though I'm I'm feeling my own fear coming up, but also I was empathing whatever was down there. So if you empath something that has some aggression towards you, you're empathing, some density there. Again, with understanding the tools that I've given, containment, one of the favorites. They show up. If you sense where they are, but you don't even have to sense where they are. Use your intent to sense whoever that is, contain that. And if they're stubborn, you contain again. Because there's times that you're not just dealing with one thing, you're dealing with a group. So, excuse me, most haunted places and houses and so on and so forth, there's not just one ghost running around there, you know, that's, oh, there's one ghost. There's usually a community up in there. And there's usually one that dominates all the other ones that are in that space. You know. So when I was doing house clearing, when I would actually physically show up, I would just like walk in. I could actually walk into a closed up place and close the door behind me, and I'll be in the pitch darkness with the entities. Once you do something like that, because they do try to think, they start to get nervous. Because I'm supposed to feel and vibrate a certain way. They can tell. It's like the sayings about animals or dogs know when you're afraid. It's energy. That's what they're reading. The dog's reading your vibration. That's how they know that you're, you know, I can bite this guy, you know, or I can scare, you know, the crap out of this person. And some of that's just basic, what's called motherhood stuff. When I, you know, everything that I've done, even having to do with why I'm even here, but everything that I've done, it has to do with experiences and being able to put, you know, all these pieces together to make something cohesive out of it. So when I would have to run around with my father, when I used to work with him as a kid, in certain places, we'd have to go through places where there would be guard dogs, literally. And he was, you know, used to being at this place, and the dogs, you know, just these German shepherds snapping their teeth and so on and so forth. He's walking across this corridor through these dogs who are snapping and so on and so forth, but they wouldn't bite him. And I'm, you know, I'm like new to this. I just stood where I was. He said, "What are you waiting for?" And it's like, you know, he said, you know, they can smell your fear. You know, get rid of your fear. You know, he wasn't the greatest teacher, but you know, it was, you know. So I really worked on that, and I'm like sucking it in, and I'm pulling the fear into like a little ball in myself, you know, so that it's not just, you know, exuding out of, you know, every pore. So I just pulled it in and walked through, calmly walked through, and you know, they were barking and, you know, and snarling and everything, but they never bit me. And these are, you know, bona fide guard dogs who would bite a person if they weren't, you know, supposed to be in there. But you can override, in other words, that's has the same thing as I'm saying as density can read that. You can override anything once you get a handle of the concept of fear. So if you watch a bunch of scary movies, understand all that stuff is just to tune you up so that you can be just a perfect little food for them to feed on. So when they pop into your realm, scare you, you go, ah! And they say, wow, this is great. Like Monsters, Inc., even though it's totally some kids show, oh, they're just like making fun of you. So this is what we do, man. You know, we set you up, get you a scary movie, we show up, go, bah! You go, ah! Shoot! Get all that energy off you, on their way, doing whatever they want to do with that energy. People say, well, you know, give them some energy, isn't that okay? No, they're tapping you out to the point, at some point, you're going to end up with what we call black ooze, which means you're just like existing and you can't do anything. You're just laying there. It's like someone can just walk around like you're a sidewalk or something, walk all over your face, and you can't move. That's where it ends up after density finishes tapping you out. So anyway, I know I went on another little tangent.
No, it's, you were talking about how if you're so afraid of something, when you're containing it, it can weaken the containment. Because
yeah.
And you said, you talked about how you overcame it before you created containment.
Yeah.
And then another thing that weakens containment is anger. You're so angry at that person.
Yeah, angry is a tricky one because yeah, if you're angry at certain individuals, it does tap into your energy, and it does weaken you. Because whatever the intent of the attachment of the person that you're angry at is literally wanting you to feed them that flavor of energy. So there's all these different flavors. I've run through them before, but you know, I'll list a couple of them having to do with anger, jealousy, insecurity, which leads to stress, There's a, I'm running a blank here. But anyway, there's numerous emotions that breaks down your resolve. You know, and there's language in, you know, in the world where they tell you, say, well, I feel up, means your energy levels are up. You feel up. I feel down, means your energy levels are down. You know, someone say, well, that's just an expression, but that is actually real. That if something's feeding on you enough, your energy levels start to go down. And individuals say, well, why don't I just give them something? So they're not into like fair play. They're into consuming as much as they can consume. If you've ever seen bullies who reflect the yin and yang, the density out there, what do they do to a kid who won't like stand up for himself, or at least who won't figure out how to get the hell away from these guys? They keep feeding, keep harassing, keep harassing, keep harassing. Sometimes to the point, and this happened. I know reading some stories having to do with what was going on in Japan in the 80s and the 90s. Bullying to the point where the kid would commit suicide. You know, so they just break you down, break you down, break you down. And what these guys are, what I call, they're clones of density, they're clones of yin and yang, who behave like that, who just keeps pushing and keeps pushing and keeps pushing. They're pushing because you're not pushing back. Some people end up just losing it, and they take a pipe to a person's head, you know, which inevitably ends up segueing into another scenario. If you're a kid, they end up in juvie or something like that, then the feeding starts again. Not only are there, you know, juvenile delinquents, there are individuals who are totally guards and so on and so forth who will start. There's these facilities of feeding. Prison is a feeding facility. But there are also what they consider benign facilities, which I've mentioned over and over again. Just check out some of the older forums, and you'll know what I mean by certain other institutions that are literally, one would consider passive feeding facilities, but not as passive as people think they are. Anything that's organized is not passive. Okay. Yeah, mixing disciplines with mind weakens mind, because the one that you're probably wanting to, certain people wanting to intermix with mind doesn't work anyway. So they're just trying to make something work by putting it, you know, like they're a mad scientist trying to, you know, mix that thing that doesn't work with mine, which then ends up weakening what I do, or weakening what I teach you. Because nobody's going to weaken me, but weakens what I'm teaching you. And so there are certain individuals who say, look, if you want to try another form of I don't know, becoming enlightened or expansion, consciousness expansion, give it at least 3 months. But don't go out there and now, oh, I grab some crystals here, I grab some candles here, I grab some runestones here, I grab, you know, you're just mixing all this stuff together that doesn't work. Some things light beings can come into and give you some information. There are things where, you know, people get readings from tarot cards. You know, all those things are a little dicey because you can get some real information. But if you're someone who doesn't have any sensitivity, anything can come in there and tell you all kinds of nonsense, and you may be inclined to believe it. And when it comes to predictions, did we have that question?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Okay. So I'm going to stick to.
Well, we can go there.
Okay. Well, okay, because I tend to flow a certain way. So I think there was one question was asking if I'm like a.
Does what you do have anything to do with fortune telling?
Oh yeah, does what I do have anything to do with fortune telling? Yeah, absolutely not. What I do will give you a sense and an ability to actually sense how things are coming your way. So when individuals do predictions, they're doing predictions like a snapshot. You know, this is what I see right now, because we're living in a flow, a stream of consciousness, a stream of conscious energy. So that path that you're following will be very much like this. But someone say, well, you know, at the end of this particular stream, you're going to meet that person or this is going to happen. So it could be something that's very positive, but if density, which everyone has to struggle with that, is out there not wanting that to happen, you're moving this way and it come this way, bam, and knock you off course. So that's why premonitions are just snapshots of what they're picking up at that particular point in time.
Or it's some dense plan to make something happen.
Well, yeah, that's true. There's another one that I talk about having to do with density wanting something to happen, and some of this has to do with some works that I've read of certain individuals where they were talking about people who had extraterrestrial experiences or abduction experiences. And these guys were very much connected to all this other stuff having to do with shadow people and what they consider ghouls and things and so on and so forth. Those, you know, there is no separation between those particular types of entities that they would consider extraterrestrials and these types of densities that are feeding. So there's a difference between, you know, what type of individuals are out there around, just like there's a difference between the, you know, the different peoples here on this planet. Some try to be altruistic. Usually the ones who try to be altruistic, they get dumped on the hardest. You know, those who give and then don't receive, don't get anything in return. Those are generally people who tend to be a bit older and a lot lighter. All that said doesn't mean that you're squeaky clean. It means you're damaged too. So when I have to deal with someone who's light, I have to go through their damage as well. The things that make them want to feel like they're not worth anything. I mean, there are individuals who will fight to feel like they're not worth anything. When I can point out, no, this is something else that's telling you that you're not worth anything. But because of the damage and because of maybe the number of expressions that they have, or just in this particular lifetime, all the nonsense that they've had to deal with up to this point is influencing them. Because also with that happening, there's something saying, this is all there is. This is all there is. This one room is all there is. This planet Earth is one room in the density's mind, and this is all there is. Everything that we do here, this is all there is. Okay?
Also, not only do fortune tellers do predictions where the density wants to make a plan for someone, so do doctors. When they tell you you're going to die in a week or a month,
Yeah.
they're just predicting, and the density that is involved with making that person ill can try to make that happen because they're trying to get that person to believe the doctor.
Yeah, so there's a lot of intent having to do with doctors, and you know, I've dealt with a few doctors, had some in the family, and it reminds me more of a cult than a cult, really, the AMA, and what they're allowed to believe and what they're not allowed to believe, what they're allowed to say to a client, what they're not allowed to say to a patient or client. So you have doctors who put their intent out there, say, yeah, you've got 3 weeks to live. And his intent is what he's putting there. And literally what I call a dense corkscrew, to try to get your mind to accept that. And there's a number of stories over the years where doctors would tell someone, you know, it's over for you, you got a month. You know, month tops you're out. I have a family member, and I've shared this in the past also, who had something extreme like an elevator, a freight elevator, come down and catch him right across the midsection, where they had to remove a certain amount of his intestines and so on. And the doctor's like, I doubt you're going to make it through this year. And he was in his 40s at the time. He was in his 40s at the time, and he moved on, I guess about 3 years ago, in his early 90s. Now, that part of my family are very, what considered really kind of hard-headed with their resolve. If they didn't want, didn't believe that crap, they didn't believe it. If they, wanted to move in a certain direction, they moved in that direction. even with a certain number of limitations that they have. So there are stories of individuals who have, you know, and I'm repeating again probably, you know, something supposedly terminal, which anything that that's considered a disease is a consciousness. I don't give a shit what they have to say about, you know, virus and bacteria and all that. Everything's energy. And everything that's energetic can be communicated with. And a lot of energies, what they call viruses, are programs. So when I go in, I will hack that program. And when you're hacking the program of that so-called disease, you also have to hit the thing that's behind it, turning the knobs and trying to make it do, you know, break it out. So then I hit that too. I hit the program, the consciousness called the disease, I hit its handler. And people have survived. So with that said, there are individuals, okay, I'm bringing someone in on their last legs. Okay, at this point, if they're on their last legs, they're already gleaning the other side. And I don't know if any of you have been around folks who were up to a certain age or whatever, and they were just wearing down, and you know, some other energetic attachments, such as they call dementia, which just means that the doors, kind of like the door has been opened up wide, and there's a rush of other entities coming in, trying to experience expression through you in your last years or whatever of your life. And I've even had that in, within my genetic family unit, where a member suffered from that, knew what was going on, but they decided they didn't want to listen to this or whatever I had to say. So they had, one sister was taking care of her, so she could swear there was about, you know, 5 or 6 people in there each day, different people, taking turns. Boom. Next thing she's someone sitting there like a dude, you know, looking at her a certain way. And then there's somebody looking at her in a different way, you know. So if you have fear, that would freak the shit out of you. But if you understand what's going on, for me, I just get close and I say, I know what you are. And you start to feel them, or you have to see the expression in their face start to change, because they don't expect. You're a lowly human. You don't know anything. You can't see oh shit. You can see me. So I know I'm moving in various directions right now.
That's very interesting because that happens a lot, you know, during sessions.
Mm-hmm.
You get multiple different entities that, because people think that they are singular when they have so much infestation.
Yeah, you're literally walking around like a apartment building or something, and you got these things that have been taking up, you know, residence in your energy over time. So when I'm pulling them, yeah, you know, it's not like you kick them on the street and they come running back. No, I'm very permanent about getting rid of these things. I get rid of them, they don't come back. You know, I have my process for that. And I tell those when I teach them to do containment, sending things to the vortex and no return. Because that is a creation, my intent. If I don't give credence to that, permission for that, it doesn't work, because there's a whole lot of little thieves out there who claim themselves to be healers and so on and so forth, and they don't have jack. They have nothing but rhetoric. And so I've had my experience with these individuals over the last 3 years, and I just, so when I give a certain technique, I'm giving it to you, and the energy of what I give to you monitors how you use it. And Neo Shamanic knows what I'm talking about, the monitoring system of how you use what I give you. So individuals, if they decide to use it incorrectly, or they try to use it to grandstand on my work, guess what? It doesn't work. There's a fail-safe. If you're true to what I teach, it's going to help you more. I don't need to feed off your energy. There's a lot of this stuff that goes on too. Individuals get some huge amulet from some teacher in Asia, and this is from my teacher, And then, you know, Ms. A, she's tapping in, she said, there's something in there, man. And that's a nasty so-and-so that's up in this guy's amulet. And I check it out, you think I'm straight, yeah, there's some nastiness who's literally feeding off of your energy, and they distribute it. He gets his piece, gives it to the teacher who gave the amulet, gets his piece, teacher gives it to his masters on the other side, everybody gets a piece. Okay, so any questions? I mean, I'm kind of like on a journey here, and I can stop it for any questions. All right, I guess you're enjoying the ride, so we'll continue.
You were talking about how if everyone is like an apartment building full of different entities that they've collected through each expression. You said that the reason why you need to do containment, chief, when you have sessions, chief deletes these entities. But if you leave yourself open with no containment, they'll see a vacancy and like, oh, look, that looks like prime real estate.
Well, that's true. That is absolutely true. You know, so individuals, and I've said this before, that, you know, half-ass containment leads to half-ass results. So if you're just containing every, you know, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that isn't going to work. Because the days that you're not containing, guess what? Open house. So if the density comes in, wow, there's a vacancy. So let's set up shop here. So just as people are diligent about everything from putting their clothes on, and some folks didn't want to swear by meditation. I do my meditation every day. You should be doing your containment every day. Screw meditation. And I know people are into it. You know, I respect you being into that shit. But again, you meditate correctly, you have a focus and a destination and something that you want, not from some random consciousness out there that you can't even read will come in and tell you anything. Just like certain individuals who ended up, like I said, damn near ready to go into the mental, the psych ward. Because they opened themselves up, and this entity came and told me, I'm the most special thing on this planet, and so on and so forth, and so on and so on and so on. And they can't even figure out their own problems in their own life. So if you run into someone who's got that many issues in their own life, and they're telling you they can fix your issues, where's logic's got to kick in somewhere along the way. So if this person is so messed up, how are they going to help me? And I've had individuals approach me, didn't even know that I fix everything myself. Come up, I think I can help you. And me and Ms. A kind of look at ourselves and say, I already read you before you walked through the door. You're jacked up, man. But I can help you. I'm a healer. I can help you. Check them out. Don't just take their word for it. Look into, see how you vibe that person before you accept. These folks running around doing ayahuasca ceremonies and so on and so forth, and you know, and getting these weird reactions from people that are straight up negative. But because they don't know any better, they just think, you know, wiggling around like a snake on the floor. I've connected with my snake consciousness. You connected with a freaking reptilian that's feeding on your butt. You know, and they don't care. They'll have you feeling really high, and you're walking around for a couple weeks feeling really high, then all of a sudden, losing altitude really fast. Hit depression really fast. That's another thing that's happening with a lot of these ayahuasca, so-called ayahuasca ceremonies, people going into major depression. Because they're believing in fakes and dense entities who are literally just making them food. So when you're going into depression, means your energy levels are going. You know, containment, keeping all that good energy to yourself, but you do have to have this clearing to get rid of the ones who are still in their apartment building. We're saying, wow, well, she's got more energy, don't have to, you know, share with, you know, with the guy in 4B down the hall because he got ripped out of there. You know, we're doing pretty good. He hasn't gotten to us yet.
Yeah, we just have to watch out for Chief.
Yeah.
But any other day, it's
Yeah,
fine.
so you say, well, I've had certain ones saying, well, I was setting up for a session, and then something really was telling me, don't do it, literally. This is not just one or two people, this is a number of individuals, because when I go in, I'm extremely effective. I'm not afraid of any of this stuff. They can't go boo, then I go running. They go boo, I go boo back. Not just boo, I grab them and I rip their asses out of there. So anyway, am I, okay, again, I'm just going to keep moving until someone says something. So I'm going to stop asking if anyone has any questions. If you have a question, feel free to, bam, just let me know. Because all this stuff I'm saying, I know already anyway, but obviously there are those who, this information is new to a number of individuals, and some have heard some of it before, but I'm just basically, like the mantra. The more I repeat certain things, the more you repeat certain things, the more you remember it, the more you commit it to your own sense of your lifestyle and how you want to be. So we can move to the next question.
Okay. So when you were talking about that client that he said that he didn't want to take off this really big amulet because it was his protection, and this question was about what is your perspective on fetishes? Because he thought it was protection, but it was feeding.
Yeah, there's a lot of, again, density works on your ignorance. And don't feel bad about being ignorant of something that you've never been exposed to. So they said, well, you don't know that? Well, no, everyone doesn't know. Everyone doesn't know. Most people don't, they don't know this. And there's a lot of things that I don't even talk about because for a lot of folks, it's just too weird for them. So it tells you my sanity that I'm not going to say stuff that's too weird for you. I have a sense that there are certain things that are definitely going to push your sense of what reality is. And that is my, one of the things I want to push your sense of reality, which means to crack that facade, crack those walls, so that you realize that that there are no walls.
You gave a really good tell it.
Understanding between you and your thinking. Okay, you can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and pull it back.
Okay. Yeah. So there was I'm not sure if I've shared this, maybe, but Chief was explaining about, I asked Chief, he said, okay, you're in a hallway, and you see a big guy in front of you, and what do?
Yeah, he's blocking the hallway.
Yeah, he's blocking the hallway. And I was like, well, whenever I was a kid, there was always this song about go under it or go over it or go around it. Mm-hmm. And Chief's like, yeah, that's pretty linear in your concept because it's something that this world provides you with mostly only linear thoughts. So I was like, over, under, or around. And Chief said, how about there are no walls? And then that was about, because I said, so that's what do you call radial thinking would be there are no walls? Is that
well, radial thinking is, there are no walls. Stack thinking is that, well, I can drill a hole through the floor or drill a hole through the ceiling, and get around them or something. But we're talking about something that's just blocking, something like it's a block, blocking your flow. And, hold on a second, sorry.
Sure. Definitely, because I remember thinking that, just by going around or over, that's how you deal with everything. But when Chief told me there are no walls, it just kind of blew my mind. I was so focused that there were walls. I believed in them.
Yeah, because it goes along with how this realm that you're in has been basically controlled and literally how you've been manipulated to think a certain way. So when I talk about, and when someone even mentions me, immediately people try to put me in a category. Is he a healer? Is he a Reiki? Is he this? Is he a fortune teller? Is he da-da-da-da-da-da-da? What I do has no walls. So how I flow with what I do is specific to the client. No two client has the exact same session. Everyone, it has to do with because you are fluid as a consciousness, but they're trying to tell you that you're rigid. And that's why you have a lot of trouble. You're not rigid in your natural state. You're trying to become rigid in something that's unnatural. There's parts of you that has a hard time flowing with certain things, even just someone saying just getting up at the same time, doing this at the same time, da, 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 da. Yeah, you gotta have a schedule. That's all very what I call dense entity, very Palladian in a sense, because all the numbers and all this stuff, and exactness and so on and so forth. That's of a dense environment. So naturally, when I was coming up, my father was in the military. He was at the end of World War II, and he was very much influenced by that. The regimen of getting up at a certain time and so on and so forth. And I give him credit because he worked hard and he busted his ass. And I only remember him missing work once in my whole time, and he worked for himself most of the time. But he still had this rigidness, and because my consciousness is not rigid due to the age of my consciousness and what I came here to do, my consciousness was always like this. Even as a kid, they're telling me stuff, this is the way it is, exactly like this. In my mind, could it possibly be some other way to do that? That's where my mind is going, and it would frustrate the shit out of adults. So reality is that you are fluid as a consciousness, but the mindset is trying to make you fit yourself into a category or a box. So whether that box has to do with what your occupation is, or what your financial status is, or what your gender is, what your race is. With this, here's the big test. Taking all of that and saying this is all bullshit and getting rid of it. And say, what do I replace it with? Once you stop paying attention to the program, guess what? You allow your higher consciousness to seep in more information. It may seem a little weird at times, if I'm going to tell you this, stand in your window ledge butt naked and try to fly from, 6 stories up. They're giving you information that is reconnecting you to what is really real. So the big, they say the big noodle is to realize that this, that you feel, touch, smell, and all this other stuff is literally an extremely elaborate illusion. And this isn't original to me. This information, people have talked about this for a good while now, that this is literally some kind of intense illusion. And I brought it up in another, like some examples from one of the other forums having to do with people who defy things that they say that are beyond the laws of physics. Little women lifting a truck off of her kid or something like that fell over on the kid. Or another story, someone under the car, Jack goes out and the car pancakes on them, and little housewife come in there with her little self and she lifts that car up. That shows you that this is something that has laws and rules that can be broken. Almost sounds like a nature story, but that literally like something that's like a hologram. There are individuals who do certain things I call parlor tricks, where they bend spoons, rub the spoon bend. So that's against the laws of physics. Or there was some guy in Africa who would do this thing where he would kind of like levitate himself a bit. He'd do something, he'd levitate himself off the ground about 6 inches or whatever. Then he'd come back down or whatever. He's pushing the walls of the hologram illusion himself. But again, now did I get too far away from what the initial question was?
No, because it can lead to another question.
Okay.
Unless they have a question, I'll read.
Well, I'll let you ask.
Would anyone like to ask a question?
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on. There's no one subject, because you may be holding it, don't feel shy. There's any subject that is, even with what I'm saying, that is coming up in the back of your head that you really would like to get some insight of. So if you have that, something like that, do that as well. Don't feel shy about interjecting while I'm talking. Because you really can't see, if someone's raising their hand or anything like that, because of the way the screen is. So we're going to go to the next one.
Okay. So you were talking about there are things a lot of what you were calling fakes use
Mhm.
fetishes, they use external things because they
All right,
don't
good.
have the. Oh, do you want to continue?
No, you go ahead,
They
but
don't have they don't have the juice. They don't have enough energy to make it happen, and usually they're using external density to make things happen for
Mhm.
themselves.
yeah.
But also they do something that you called euphoria,
All
where
right.
they feel high and then they go down. There's like they feel really tired.
Yeah, there's a lot of euphoric experiences that people will have, and they say, well, it feels, it feels like I'm surrendering in a way, like you're just releasing yourself into something, and a lot of times when that's happening, you are releasing yourself into being fed on by whoever it is that is literally causing the euphoria. So there are individuals who have, extended family members who was talking about being in a church, and then they would get into the spirit and so on and so forth, and everybody would just be in this zone, in this euphoric zone, and so on and so on. And say, yeah, it feels very real. I said, yeah, because it's real. You're being fed on it. I said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, when you leave, how do you feel? I said, well, yeah, I feel like going home and I go to sleep. And I said, okay, so now that you've had that experience, do you feel that your life changed? And every time, most I say 9 times out of 10, they'll say no. They don't feel like their life has changed or anything. They just, go back there to get this feeling. But what it is, euphoria it's like a tool against consciousness because it does feel a certain way. And when I felt it was weird. I know what euphoria feels like. I felt it was weird, and it had to do with some years ago, some individual that I didn't even know wants to talk to me in immigration, and he's like, talking, but people who talk and then they lean on you, you don't even know, and they get close and they lean on you like that. And when he was doing that, I said, I got this real freaking weird euphoric feeling, and I said, I am not like that dude. So what's going on? So I contained him. As soon as I contain him, he moves off, and that feeling goes away. This person was literally trying to drain my energy with his intent, and he knew what he was doing. And people do certain things like that, whether they can put it into words or not. There are people who like to touch. They're always touching, and that's their way of feeding. So you had Ms. A had an experience with someone who we were talking to her, I think, about something having to do with the work in my book and so on. But she decides she wants to touch Ms. A. She's, oh, honey, and this.
Everything
and this,
she said.
everything she said, she can touch. And, Ms. A's like, okay, I think I got attachment. And sure enough, she did. So not only they feed, but it's like people ooze. And so the ooze comes in and just like crawls on the Ms. A. And so I had been pulling this off of her arm and pulling whatever else that was, was coming. Ms. A knows how to do her containment and so on and so forth as well, but it's a lot faster a lot of times if I do it.
And because like I was containing her over and over, but also like she just kept touching me, but also I was afraid of the touching, like that was gonna get me. Yeah. So the fear was allowing some of that in. Yeah, the fear was actually opening up doors to allow something, because you're afraid this person may, and it takes a while to get through, get squashed the fear. But once you start pushing through it, that's the beginning. Yes, go ahead.
I have that fear too with temples because of, as you know, my job, and I've had to go and see a lot of to temples recently. So I spend a lot of time focusing before on containing, but I definitely have a fear. And I feel like it affects my containment, and then things hop in. I know one of my sessions with you guys, I told you I had a monk in my leg, but then when we came to the session, he'd run very far away.
Yeah, yeah, and that's again, very good, Lucy. Because again, and I think it's because when you're exercising and trying to understand the work that I'm teaching you, sometimes people they make a misstep, and then they feel like and it has to do with just prematurely moving into a realm that you weren't ready for, and so that fear comes up that you're afraid you're going to move into a realm again that you're not ready for. And so that's where I think the fear for yours, derives from. But again, since that time, and we've worked, extensively on that particular issue, since that time, you have decided that you're going to approach it in a certain way, that you're going to do your containment in a certain way. Have faith in your containment when you go into these temples. Because what you were experiencing, you were going after something that time. When you're going into temples, you're just basically keeping them at bay. Keeping whatever's in there at bay. And I've been through my share of temples, and I've caused some real ruckus in some of those temples. But that's only because I was asked to come to those temples by certain individuals to do what I do. So again, have the confidence that I am not misusing my containment. I'm using it according to the way that Neo Shamanism instructs me to use it.
Yeah.
To keep, my energy contained and keeping density off of me, away from me.
Yes. Thank you. When I feel it come in my head saying, "Oh, you're failing. You can't do this," I definitely have moments where I'm like, "Oh, I am," and then I'm like, "No, I'm not." And send,
Well,
yeah.
Well, again, that's when we talk about MCs and MCs, also will try to tell you you can't do things. Miss Ace, you said every now and then they still try to say weird stuff to you. I think it was a few years ago I experienced something like that, and it was using a certain tincture at the time or whatever, and something just started saying, "Who are you to say that you could do this stuff? Who are you to say that you can, be effective at doing any of this stuff? Who are you?" All of a sudden, there's like this voice. I'm like, "Really? Okay. You're busy. They're busy yammering. It's like someone that you talk to on the phone, and they just go blah 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 blah. Their breath is so short that you can't get in. That's literally how they will talk to you at times. And so I just blocked them. Okay, I said, I have a spotless track record. I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. Oh yeah, I can do what the hell. You better watch yourself. Bam, gets quiet. But because they open their mouths, they're tagged. So when you think of something blah, blah, blah like that in your head, say you're tagged. Bam. Which means when you're tagged, it means there's something that will happen on the other end that will actually come extract these things and deliver them to specific places that I've chosen. So if you feel that, and again, where they say, "Oh, you're bailing," you say you're tagged. And your intent with saying you're tagged is that those who are assisting on the other side are coming to get you, and they do come and get them. Because there's times when we've had individuals on the table and they're possessed. And I swear the number of possessions, because I was just counting the really, really intense ones where I had to fight with people and pin them down on the table and so on, or they're punching at me and things like that, to the ones where they'll lay there and they'll just start saying crap to me out of the person's mouth.
Lucy experienced that whenever she ended up saying, F you, and she's like, "That's not me," because she was empathing something.
Yeah, some people feel a little funny because, some people will come up, "F you," and I'm like, "No, it's not me." I said, "No, it's not you, it's okay, I know it's not you. I know it's," and I look through them, "It's you," and then as they start screaming.
That's how density sets people up.
Mm-hmm.
They can get someone else's space to say just the right thing that will set you off, and then you think it's that person, but it's actually the thing in them.
That is true, because there are situations where individuals will have a misunderstanding, and when I was writing the first book, I would give a sentence, and say it was basically transcribing for me, and she kept hearing a totally different sentence. Mm-hmm. I said, "No, I said this." She said, "Okay," and then she'd say a different sentence again. And it had to do with the MCs that are in there that are literally trying to cause a problem. So one of the things they don't like people who are working towards their light, getting stronger with their light, to actually work together. So they'll try to make these little, some of the stuff is really childish. Some of the stuff you told me was just kind of like crazy. That I'm supposed to, like, be so angry and get rid of you because
you didn't put 2 water bottles in that fridge.
Yeah. And I said, when did I tell you, you gotta put 2 water bottles in the fridge? I don't, and why would I trip out if there's not 2 water bottles in the fridge? But that's just one of them. But there's some really, really ridiculous things that will happen because of these MCs. So mishearing someone or someone saying, I didn't say that, but then you're not sure because you're not sure about that person and their attachments. So there's a game that goes on with these things. And when you have sessions with me, the game starts to be over for them. They don't have free reign to manipulate my clients and cause them as much trouble as it caused, as it has caused them in the past. And so when I'm teaching you about recognizing what these things are, that also helps keep them at bay. They don't just feel free to just walk into your house. It's like a vagrant feeling free to walk into your really nice, clean house. You're like, man, I can smell you. And, you take your bat and, you get out of here with me. I said, oh, great, I'm glad you're here. Here's a paddy wagon to this, in other words, where I get rid of density. You're going over there. So if you're doing it right, you have the support from both on the other side. It's literally, they come walking in. Oh yeah, wow, look, vacancies. Oh, you just walk into a trap. And I've actually had a client recently where I was like in my mind and said, okay, these densities are walking into this trap because they were attacking her because of her proximity to me. And finally, I start pulling them out, and I'm just like, oh, well, I've got quite a few this time. And one literally said, it's a trap, out of her mouth. Like trying to warn the other ones that it's a trap, And I say, too late, I've contained the whole area. So anyway,
They react to
you say insolent?
insults.
Oh, insult? Yeah, those of you who have experienced sessions with me, there's times I insult them and I call them names and stupid and idiots and so on and so forth. Because people are dumb in this world and you want to set them off. They're doing sneaky stuff, but they got these weak egos. So you set them off in front of other people, and they just can't handle it. And then they just blurt out, and next thing they're exposed as an idiot that they are. So what happens with density? I'll do the same thing. And some people, they get a little uncomfortable because they've been trained. You got to be afraid of those things on the other side. There's demons in their horns and so on and so forth, and they breathe fire and all that shit. I said, nah, they don't breathe anything that hurts me. So I say, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're dumb. And you'll hear them like growl at times through, it said, do you feel fear on me? Do you smell fear on me? And then you get a pause.
Because they don't feel
Because they don't feel it. They literally have what we consider something akin to a game book with here's how you intimidate the human being. You come in, you growl. How about moving something in the room? And they're the only one in the room. Move stuff. Yeah, that makes you feel creeped out. We got that little boost of energy there. Or sometimes there are individuals who will actually yell. You'll hear an audible yell or something in the room. And that's all to try to entice you or to get you to fear. So again, we've been programmed from maybe scary stories from the time you were a kid, watching scary movies and so on and so forth. That's what scary movies are about. It's all about tuning you up for feeding. They don't have any other word. But I did use them when I was really practicing my battles with density. I would sit, give me the scariest effing movie you can find. And I'll sit there and I watch it with what I've learned. Oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. And sometimes I would just get cocky. It's, I kick his ass. He's not that tough.
And you would think that doesn't affect them, but they're very petty.
Yeah,
that's where petty people come from. Things that are in them.
Yeah, everything, all the weirdness that's in this realm comes from there. They're manipulated by those things there on the other side. And someone say, well, what do you mean on the other side? Allow you to see them. So if you've seen, like if you've had experience with shadow people and other of these aberrations or something popping in at night, that's the other side.
Chief, in the movie Monsters, Inc., the teacher was yelling at the main character, Sully, because all he knows is this one roar. And he's like, if you would have looked at the file on the kid, you would know he likes lions, so he's not afraid of the roar. He's afraid of the hissing, like a snake. And you would have you would not have succeeded in getting the essence from scaring the child.
Yeah, no, he got less because he was using a tactic that the kid was familiar with. Kid didn't mind lions, His little mind like, oh man, I got a lion in my room. I really don't like lions. So he didn't get the amount of essence that he was supposed to get from these kids. And if you don't think that they have a little dossier, they do. So I know this is the end of this particular forum, but I won't leave you totally hanging. But when it comes to the dossier, it means that there is folks who talk about lack of privacy. They never had any. Because they're having you think that everyone who is basically spying on you is in a human form. Some of them are, but they don't need CCTV cameras to spy on you and to know what you're doing and to know when to step in or to know when your conscious energy is spiking and you're having ideas that are expansive and coming in and trying to steer you back into your hole. You don't want to walk through that door. You don't want to have that session, with the chief. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. Because they have their little dossier. And the funny thing about it, when I start to shift people's energy, they don't know how to deal with, because their information, all of a sudden, people aren't afraid of the same things that were afraid of before. They keep coming in with these outdated, dossiers about, okay, all you need to do is this, and that'll get her. And then they do that, and then, then the thing goes smack like that, and they come back, that wasn't supposed to happen.
It was a bad idea.
So I'll end it with that, but again, thanks to everyone who donated for the forum. It's been enjoyable, really. And don't worry about, the number, not interacting that much, because I understand a lot of the stuff, just the way that I talk about it, I'm just on a journey. I just keep going in various directions. And it takes a bit to kind of keep up at times. But again, you can always review the forum. You can download it or just review it on Skype.
And the list of questions that have been asked on the forum are on the neoshamanic.com/FAQ.
Yeah. Okay. With that, everyone, you have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Marley.